another episode of the Creatress of Freedom podcast. I am Annie and I am your host, and I'm so happy to be dropping on in again with you today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to tune on in to this beautiful conversation that we are about to have around feminine leadership. So, I want to delve straight into it today because this is a juicy topic, and I want to share with you some experiences that I've had as a business owner, as a salon owner, and then also some things that I have witnessed and experienced mentoring other women into feminine leadership as well. So, what even is feminine leadership, right? Well, feminine leadership is the new way that we are doing business. We are not subscribing to this like uh, culture of expecting our staff to just know what they need to do, this dictation of do, without actually supporting, without actually leading our team, and ending up frustrated and annoyed at the staff that we have put on with them not achieving the results that you actually want to have reached or achieved within the business, right? So, feminine leadership is about you stepping into your level of mentorship, of nurturing, and of supporting, right? That's what feminine leadership is. And so, the more that you learn to lead your team, the more efficient and effective your team is going to be within your business. And so I know from my own experience that being a business owner, I put staff on in order to grow my business and reach those next levels of milestones and next levels of success. But what I didn't realize was that I was missing a whole heap of learnings and skills around leading a team. And that's because we're not taught this part of it, right? We're not actually taught. Usually we go from being an employee to jumping straight into being a business owner. We haven't even learned how to run a business yet. And now all of a sudden we throw a team on thinking that it's going to eliminate all of our problems and it's going to help us grow our business and make more money, when in actual fact, we're still stuck back in employee mode because we haven't learned how to run a business. And now we also have no idea on how to actually lead a team. And I say this inside my containers all of the time, that leading a team is a whole different skill set that is required. Yeah. And you have to be really gentle with yourself as you are going through that process, because you have not learned how to do this, right? And it's just like anything that you are just learning out how to do, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. You're going to have a lot of valuable lessons that are going to come your way in order for you to be the best version of yourself as a leader. So be gentle with yourself if you are stepping into this area of leadership. And I want to kind of address a couple of areas, because I think there's the first one of like, there is an element of your staff not perhaps being the right suitable fit for your business, but then there is also an element of you not really knowing how to lead your team either. And so we can't keep blaming everybody else for our circumstances or for the business not growing the way that you want it to grow. It's not growing because you're not knowing how to lead your team, right? It's not your staff's responsibility. It is actually your responsibility as a business owner to learn the skills that you need to learn in order to be the best version of yourself, so that then your team can show up and be the best version of themselves. So, this conversation that I want to have with you today is really about this type of leadership, but then also realizing that we can't take it too far in the feminine leadership area, because if you take it too far, your staff will start to think and realize that perhaps you're not an authority and that you've been really lenient in a lot of areas, because that's what feminine leadership is really learning and understanding your staff and mentoring your staff. But some staff can take it too far, and then before you know it, you have all these issues that are arising within the business. So I'll give you a few examples of what this might look like, so that you can kind of see where maybe you are at in this level of leadership, right? So I'm going to use myself as an example, first of all. So I went in and I hired all of the team, and it was like amazing. And I was like, this is great. And I was getting frustrated that they didn't have full columns. I was getting frustrated that they were barely making their wage, that I had to work really hard still in the salon in order to cover not only their wage but the business expenses, let alone me being able to take a wage myself. Like, that was not, the business was not financially in a position for that to happen at that time. And I remember being really uh, frustrated and annoyed, because I'm like, I put staff on to make my life easier, but in actual fact, it's causing me more stress. It's causing me more headache than it's worth. I might as well just do it myself. I'm doing it myself anyway, but now I all of a sudden have these other expenses, and this is just pointless, right? I felt like I was bashing my head against a brick wall over and over and over with my team. Nothing was sinking in. Nothing was being implemented, right? And I just got to the stage where I was so frustrated. And obviously, they could feel my frustration as a business owner. And I ended up losing all of my team. Literally, all of my team. I had like three at that stage. And within like a month of each other, they all kind of fell off. And I was like, what the hell? There's a part of me that was really grateful, because I was like, they're just not it's just too hard work, really, and I just don't want to go down that path, right? And I was like, I'm never ever employing staff again. And I hear this a lot from salon owners that have come into my world where they have had bad experiences with staff, and they're like, no way, never going down that path again. So I get it, and I've been there, but hopefully this conversation gives you some hope of maybe rehiring again. And I was like, no, not doing it. So I literally didn't. I did not hire staff for probably, I'm trying to think when that period was. I would say a good maybe 6 to 8 months. I didn't hire any staff, and I just worked solo. And there was an element of ease with that, but the trouble is that I was essentially capped in the amount of income that I could earn. And I'm not saying that a team is for everybody, but depending on what your goals are and what you want to achieve and the type of lifestyle that you want to live, you might need to look at having a team, right? There is different ways that you can grow a business, is, other streams of revenue that you can bring in. But one of the great ways is to actually build out a team and have your team, working for you. So depending on what your goals are, would depend on whether I would encourage you to go down that path of hiring a team, or whether I would encourage you to just stay solo. And some women come in my world and they don't necessarily want this big extravagant life, which is rare, might I add. But so sometimes we don't go down the path of teams, and we look at other ways to bring in revenue for them without having to have a team. But usually the main reason that women don't want to hire a team is because they've done it before and they've been burnt, and they don't want to go back down that path again. But the thing is that you were burnt because you didn't know how to lead your team, right? You didn't know the skills that were needed in order to help them thrive. And one of the big reasons that we don't learn these skills is because we actually don't have time to learn them. And we don't have time to train our staff up either, because you're still focused on bringing in the money, right? And so when you're still focused on bringing in the money, that means that you're still working with clients. And so your days are filled with working with clients. You don't have the time to actually train your staff. And this is a really crucial part to having a team that thrives. Because if you want them to perform or execute services to a certain standard, to a certain expectation, then it is up to you as the business owner to actually train them and have the systems and the policies and, have everything lined out for them, so that they know what the job role is. They also know what is expected of them, and you are there to train and support them. And if you do not have the time, and I've said this, if you've listened to other episodes, you will have heard me say this numerous times. If you do not have the time to train your staff accordingly and appropriately, you should not be hiring, because that is not fair on your staff by putting them on and just expecting them to just know how you want things done, how you want the phone answered, how you want clients checked out, how you expect the salon operations to run on a daily basis. If you are not training them, or you do not have a manual with your policies and your procedures that outlines all of those things, then you are setting yourself up purely for failure. And you're also doing yourself a disservice, because you're going to be so frustrated at your team because they're not performing the way that you were hoping that they were going to perform. And it's not your fault and it's not their fault. It's just there's a gap in between these two parts of growing the business. So it's really important for you to learn what systems you need to have in place in order to put these staff members on, or this team on. So that's like one aspect that I wanted to go through. But another aspect that I also want to go through as well is there is a level of support and nurturing that needs to also happen through this period. And that is, if you have been in mentorship before, you will know what this feels like from a student perspective, right? From that client and teacher, right, perspective. So like the women that come into my world, I help them step into their full potential, right? They might have limiting beliefs that we help them navigate and let go of. They might have come up and face different challenges in their life. And so it's my responsibility as their mentor to help them navigate through that, and not just be like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, could you imagine if you invested in a mentor and the mentor was like, I don't know what you want me to do about it. Like, I've given you everything that you need to do. You should just fucking go and do it. Right? Like, you would be like, I thought you were here to support me. Right? That's exactly how your team feel. Your team are wanting to be supported by you, and it's your responsibility to support them and to learn a little bit about them as well. So learning, like, what are their limiting beliefs that they're currently holding? What are their previous experiences with employers that they might have now got a bad taste in their mouth around certain situations or certain expectations? Also, like, what has their childhood been like? Because if their childhood has been where they've had the confidence completely knocked out of them, or they weren't praised as a child, or they didn't receive the love that they needed as a child, that's actually going to show up in the workplace, right? So it's learning and understanding all of these things for yourself as a leader, so that you can then help navigate and be the mentor that your team actually need you to be, because that is essentially your role. You are being a mentor, and you're training and you're teaching these upcoming stylists or therapists within your business so that they can thrive as well. So there is these like a few different aspects of what leadership actually looks like. But sometimes what does happen is sometimes it can go too far. Okay. And so this, after I learned all of this, I was like, oh my gosh, I now understand why my team all left me, because I was that boss that was like, I don't understand why you just can't do what you need to do. But it was because I hadn't trained them. I hadn't actually taught them. I had not really given them the time of day to show them how I expect things to be done. I just told them once, showed them once, and I was like, off you go on your merry way. And that is not acceptable as far as I'm concerned now as a leader, right? Back then I thought it was all good, and I'm like, that's all you should need. But now I understand that no, they do need a lot more support, and they do need a little bit more hand holding. So once I learned this and understood this, I was like, okay, right, it's my responsibility. So then I went too far with it, where I started to really learn and understand about my team. And I probably made some exceptions for some of the behaviors. I probably justified some of the things that were going on in the salon because I knew a lot about, things that were happening for them at home personally. And I started to become a bit of a friend instead of being a boss. And so there is this fine line when it comes to feminine leadership of, yes, nurturing and supporting and guiding your team, but then also not crossing that line too far where you become friends with them, because they're going to, I always say this, staff are like children. So they're going to push the boundaries as far as you let them push those boundaries. So if you have let them get away with certain things for a certain period of time, and you're making excuses and you're essentially enabling the behaviors that are happening within the salon, maybe they're running late, maybe they're walking out mid-client, maybe they are just walking off and deciding that they're going to take an extra 20 minutes on their lunch break, whatever it is, right? Like maybe they're doing services that they're actually not supposed to be doing within the salon. You get the gist of what I'm trying to say here, right? And so if this is the case, and you have not stopped these things from happening and re-emphasize, hey, this is my policy, hey, this is the standard, this is the expectation that we have around XYZ, then you're essentially enabling that behavior, and you're telling them without telling them that that's acceptable, right? And so they're going to keep pushing those boundaries until you get to the stage where you absolutely flip your lid and you're like, what the fuck? Like, why is this still happening? It's still happening because you're allowing it to happen, right? So there is this fine line where we don't want to justify too many red flags. Think of this is coming through, so I'm just going to share it. Think of hiring staff as like dating, right? Like if you see too many red flags, all of a sudden now you're marrying this person and you're like, what the, well, I probably shouldn't have married this person to start with. It's exactly the same with staff, right? So you see the red flags early and you straight away you address them and you change what needs to be changed, right? Then there needs to be consequences in place if the behavior still keeps going, like written warnings, and then potentially dismissal. So it's really about being able to not become too friendly with them, but also not being that like hard ass masculine, like dictation type boss and leader. So there is a balance between it. And the thing is that you won't know when you've crossed that boundary or crossed that line of becoming too friendly until you start to have these things start to happen, which recently happened with one of my private clients, where these things started to all fall apart. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like, what is going on? Like, why all of this stuff is happening? And I said to her, I know that it seems a lot. And I know that you are like, I thought that I had eliminated all of this, but we actually want to welcome these things, right? Because these are lessons that you are learning. And she is, she's a mum, and, in the coming years, she wants to take more time off. And I said to her, without these lessons that you're being presented with right now, you wouldn't know what needs to be fixed, right? So we want to welcome these things so that in the coming years, when you decide to take more time off, these are not going to be problems. So it's almost like the universe is giving you little test runs right now of, hey, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. Now we need to put systems and we need to put policies in place around all of that, which I've got you covered in that area with my FSM, which is the Freedom Salon Manual. And it shows you with all of these lessons that you are learning and challenges and obstacles that you are facing right now, it's actually really great data because it's showing you where you get to improve things, where you might need to put a system in place, where you might need to tweak your current policy, where you might need to sort out what that procedure actually looks like from start to finish, whatever that is. So welcome these challenges that you might be facing with your team, but don't just do nothing with them, right? See what's going on, realize this is not how you want things to actually go moving forward, and then implementing some kind of strategy to eliminate or eradicate what is currently happening. And that's essentially a boundary that you're putting in place. And one of the hardest parts of the boundary is actually maintaining the boundary, right? So it's then having to probably readdress this situation numerous times before it starts to sink in and before it starts to become just an easy part of your processes. So This is my little talk that I wanted to talk to you about today because I'm seeing it inside my containers. And usually, if it's happening inside my containers, it's also happening collectively. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention to just really help you understand that if you do have things going on in your business with your team, then you might need to brush up on your own leadership skills, which might also mean that you might need to have some policies and procedures and systems set up within it. And then you might need to actually look at doing a little bit more training with your team, and remembering that your training with your team really should be coming from this place of, I've got time to be able to train you, not, oh, I've got a 15-minute gap here, let's just quickly whip over this, right? That's not the type of leadership that we step into. So if this episode has been supportive for you, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. If you would like to really start to map out and get these policies and really start to lead your team in this feminine leadership, and it's an area that you know you need support in, which honestly, if you're not in mentorship, I guarantee that it is an area that you probably need support in, because there's skills that you probably have not learned around leading a team. So if you desire to have that type of support and really learn more about this feminine leadership, and then I really invite you to come into my spaces. So either one-on-one mentorship where we really get down and dirty specifically for you, or you can look at coming inside Evolve, which is my 12-month salon mastermind. And we go through a lot of the feminine leadership side of things. And it's great because you're in a community, right? So you're hearing problems and troubles that maybe some other salon owners are currently experiencing. And that actually allows you, without you experiencing that problem, to go, oh shit, I don't want that to happen in my salon. So I'm going to put this policy and this procedure in place right now to eliminate that from ever happening. So it's a great space for you to really collaborate and work with these other women and realize, oh, this woman maybe is having this challenge, this woman's having this challenge. I'm not experiencing that yet, but this is what I'm going to do. And you can really kind of bounce ideas off with each other. And then obviously also have my support in stepping into this level of new leadership that perhaps you have never stepped into before. So if you are interested in either of those spaces, head to the show notes. You will find the application for both. If you have questions, come and let me know on Instagram or Facebook. You'll find me. Or you'll also see our email address as well. And you can just shoot me through an email, and I will respond to you via email. But I'm super excited for you to hopefully start to implement some of the things that I have shared with you today, and really just be gentle on yourself as you're navigating what this looks like moving forward with leading a team. All right, I'll talk to you soon.